Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2 o'clock. It is now my time to represent and present. My name is Dr. King. I am a resident professional at 800 Link Community here in Duncanville, Texas. My counterpart, Matthew, just gave you a bunch of information on voting 101. Are you ready? Um, Presented a bunch of information on why voting matters, and my opinion on it as well is voting matters because you matter. You have a voice. You're not just walking around here as a ghost with nothing to be said, no opinion to be given. So your opinion matters. And then, are you eligible to vote? you know Depending on the state you're in, there are certain criteria that you have to have, and I'm going to also go over that criteria as well. Matthew covered that. And then, is your voter registration up to date? We'll cover that as well. Ordinances and local and federal things on the ballot. All of that was really good information. And then the Secretary of State websites. Matthew covered a lot of information in that hour. I will be covering from 2 to 3 information on the 3 states TI Communities has complexes in Texas, Nevada, Illinois, Georgia, Maryland, and Washington. And so I will be presenting on the voting guidelines and everything for Texas, Nevada, and Illinois. And then Matthew will come back at 3 and pick up with Georgia, Maryland, and Washington. So without further ado, here we go. Let me give you a little bit of information about myself. I am an 18-year resident of TI Community of 800 Link. I've been here 18 years, 18 wonderful years. This is a great place to live. I live in Duncanville, Texas, which is right outside of Dallas. I graduated from Duncanville High School. I am married, and I have a daughter who's a senior at Duncanville High School, ready for her to graduate and go on to college. Um, I educationally hold 4 degrees. I have an associate degree in arts and sciences, a bachelor's degree in general psychology. I have a master's degree in organizational management and a doctorate in sports management. And working for TI, being able to be a resident educator is one of the best things I've ever done. It allows me to use all 4 of those degrees in every capacity, including this one. I'm not that I don't know a whole lot about voting, but nobody has ever asked me to present some information on voting. So I am actually pretty hyped about this. But I just wanted to give you a little background on myself. Just started with TI Communities a couple of months ago, and these couple of months have gone fast and they've been wonderful. So, voting. As you can see, I am a Black female in America. So voting is very important to me. And one of the big things that for my generation was Rock the Vote, because Rock the Vote was started in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And back then, that was the age of hip hop and rap music. All of that started coming to fruition. You had all the big name artists. And one of the other major things that was going on, as it has always happened, unfortunately, in our country, is that Black people's right to vote was always continuously being stifled. And then with hip hop and rap coming along, my generation wanted to, it was our time to step up to do for ours. So Rock the Vote was a website that was started in the 90s by music moguls, basically in the hip hop and rap industry. And the idea was to get our generation out to vote. Now everything is about the millennials. There are more millennials than there are baby boomers. And now, that's the whole thing, getting the millennials registered to vote, getting them to the polls. Well, in my generation, we were, Gen X, but we were this year's millennials back then. Everything was about getting our generation out to vote. And so one way to do that, especially with minorities and people of color, was to start the Rock the Vote campaign. And it was huge. It was all on MTV and things like that. And if I'm saying telling my age, hey, it is what it is. But Rock the Vote was something that was started by my generation for our generation to get the young people back then. It has continued over the last 30 years. And it has been able to successfully get over 32 million people registered to vote, which is awesome. And for me, I started voting. I registered to vote at 18. That, to me, that was my right. At 18, I'm supposed to learn how to drive, get my driver's license, and I registered to vote. And I did. I registered to vote at 18, and I voted in the last 7 presidential elections, and this one will be number 8, and I will be there. I will be voting early. A blessing this year, life event. My daughter, this will be her first year to vote because she'll be 18 on election day. So it's moms and dad, we're passing that torch down of civic duty. It is your right to get up and go vote, and she will go with us this year, and I am so happy. So the Rock the Vote website, once again, like I said, it was started in the 90s to get my generation out to vote. It has since gone forward all these years and have gotten successfully 32 million people registered to vote. Um, it's basically like a central hub. Instead of going to all the different states' websites, you can go to Rock the Vote, and there's a lot of information on there on, on just about all the states. Every state has their laws and based on voting. There is no U.S. constitutional amendment about what has to be done with voting. So every state has their laws and rules and guidelines for voting, but you can go to the Rock the Vote website and pick on any state, and the basic information is there. If there is something specific that you need answered, you may need to go to your state website, but you can find all the general information on the Rock the Vote website. And then also something that has started this year, because I don't remember it with the last election and probably didn't pay attention if it was there, was Facebook.com's vote page. And it is www.facebook.com/vote. And then the Rock the Vote page is www.rockthevote.org. But the Facebook.com vote page, I mean, it's basically the same thing as Rock the Vote, but it's a little more conservative. But you can find all the basic things that are going on with this 2020 election. You can check your voter registration status, find out what voting requirements are in your state. If you're a military personnel and are overseas and want to vote, you can find information there about that. Just anything general, find out who's on the ballot, things like that. It's like I said, it's basically a more conservative Rock the Vote website, but they're both there. They both should contain the same information. So you can use either one, either Rock the Vote or the facebook.com/vote website. And so before I break down and start discussing what the state requirements are for the 3 states that I have, I want to discuss with you what the regular voting requirements are regardless to whatever state that you are in. Give me just a second. I'm trying to start my my timer because I don't want to go over time. But it doesn't matter what state you're in. The voting requirements are you must be a U.S. citizen. And once again, depending on the state you live in, there are certain requirements, like in Texas, if you're not a U.S. citizen, but you have a green card, you are allowed to register to vote. So there are things that if you are in different states or whatever, and there is a question as to whether or not, if we're not born here, whether or not you are actually eligible to vote, you need to go to your state's website, voting website, and find that information out. I just have the basics here today. And then you must meet your state's residency requirements. And once again, that varies based on state. And I would do the ones for Texas, Illinois, and Nevada. Also, you must be, and for everything that I've researched, everybody is requiring that you must be 18 on election day or older. You have to be a minimum of 18 years old or older. You can register to vote at 17, and that also varies per certain states. And I'll get to the 3 that I have in a minute. But you have to be 18 on election day to be able to vote. And then there's also a registration deadline, and once again, that varies by state. Nobody has the same guidelines. There are some people who are already in early voting. Some people don't start. Some states don't start early voting until next month. I mean, my apologies, next year. But so it's like everything's different. So those are the basic guidelines. You must be a U.S. citizen. You have to meet your state's residency requirements before you can register to vote. And you can be homeless in some states and still be able to vote. Once again, that would be something you would have to check with your state to be able to determine. You must be 18 on election day, and then you must register by the deadline. And then so who cannot vote? Non-citizens, including permanent legal residents, cannot vote. But once again, in the state of Texas, if you have a green card, you are eligible to vote. Some states will not allow those with felony convictions, even if they've already fulfilled those sentences and paroles and everything. They are not eligible to vote. In the state of Texas, you can. So it's different. In some states, if you have any type of official diagnosed and there's paperwork, mental incapacitation, you are not allowed to vote. I haven't seen anything about that on Texas yet, and we'll get to there. And then U.S. residents residing in U.S. territories. You can. I kind of shied away from the U.S. territories because there was a lot of murky area there. So I'm basically covering the 50 states in mind. But those are the basic voting guidelines. And then to register the vote, there are certain ID requirements that you must have. And just for everybody, all state laws require that there must be some type of ID used. And it has to be an official state or federally issued ID. And so most often it's going to be a driver's license or a state issued ID card or a photo military ID card or a passport. Those are the primary four that, regardless to what state you live in, you can use those to register to vote. And some people have all four, some do, some don't. But they all must have your photo on them. They can't just be ID and, it sounds funny, but I've always said people would do anything, they would try something at least once. But you must have a photo ID current, or with your driver's license, it cannot be expired more than 4 years. That's for the state of Texas. Not sure about others. State issued ID cards, photo military ID cards, and then a passport. And for the most part, they must be current. They can't be expired. And then supplemental forms of ID that are not photo that you may use, birth certificates, social security cards, bank statements, and utility bills. And the bank statements and utility bills must have the address on them at the address that you reside at. You can't use mom's, have your utility bill in mom's name and you're using her address. No, you can't do that. You have to use a bank statement or a utility bill that is in your name, that has your address on it where you currently reside. And those are basically the primary forms of ID that must be used. And that's, once again, these are basic requirements for any state. And so with that information going, we are going to start with the 3 states that I have. And I have changed the order that I wanted to present them in, and it's just for my personal reasoning. But the first state that I'm presenting on is the state of Illinois. And I could have sworn that I had posted. If I didn't, give me just a second. I had to change some things to enter. There we go. In the comments section, every website that I am discussing is in the comments section for you to use and look up if you need to. So the first state that I'm going to discuss their voting guidelines are the state of Illinois. That website is listed there. Just about every state allows you to check your registration online, and that information is there. Well, I put the main websites for the state election authorities. And so within those websites, like if you go to Illinois and go to elections.il.gov, which is the state of Illinois' election website, you can find the link to check your registration. Or you can go to Rock the Vote, or you can go to facebook.com. They will all take you to, depending, if you choose your state, they will take you to your state's registration page where you can check your voter registration status. And so for the state of Illinois, for registration, you must be a U.S. citizen. Age limit is 17 years at the time of primary elections. And then you must be 18 on election day. And so back in the primaries, when they were trying to determine who was going to run against President Trump for the Democratic presidential candidate position, that was the primary elections. And so the state of Illinois is saying, hey, you have to be 17 on that time, whenever that date was for the state of Illinois for the primary election. You could, the age limit to register to vote was 17, but that person has to be 18 by election day. And so that's where it comes in when I say each state has different things. Like in Texas, you can't register if you're not at least 17 years, 10 months. So Illinois is just saying that you had to be 17 by the state primaries, and you will have turned 18 on election day on November 3rd. You must be 18 years old. And so then the residence limit, you must have lived in Illinois within your election precinct at least 30 days prior to election day. And I went back and looked on the calendar, and that means that you must have lived in order to vote on November 3rd, you have to have lived in the state of Illinois on or before October 4th, this coming October 4th. And something else that I'm noticing when I'm looking at things are precincts. That's something else that varies by states. When we get to Texas, you understand things with counties and precincts and things like that. But for most states, you can't just because you live in a certain county or borough or however they call it, a parish or whatnot, some allow you, you can vote anywhere like Dallas County, and we'll get to that. But then there are others, and most require you have to vote within your precinct, and your precinct is based on your residential address. And so that's what the state of Illinois is saying. You must live in Illinois at least 30 days prior to election day, which means you had to have moved and have been in Illinois since on or before October 4th. And then you must live within the precinct that you are going to be voting in that same 30-day period. And so as far as convictions, if you have been convicted and or incarcerated, you are not allowed to vote in the state of Illinois. If that has changed, please let me know. But according to the Illinois website the other day, that was their rule. And then how to register. The state of Illinois is one of the states that allows you to vote online. However, and this is something I had never seen before because we don't do this in Texas, the state of Illinois also does automatic registration with their Department of Motor Vehicles. So when you go to get your driver's license and you are 18 or over, and you've met all the requirements to be able to obtain a license in the state of Illinois, when they put all your information in the system to issue you a driver's license or a state ID, you are also being registered to vote, which I think is really efficient. The second way that you can register the vote is online at the elections.io.gov website. And you can actually get through that through the Rock to Vote or the facebook.com/vote websites. They'll both take you to the Illinois registration page if you live in Illinois and want to vote. And then everybody has paper registration, and you would have to go online to the Illinois website, elections.io.gov website, and download and print that form. And so what ID is needed to vote in the state of Illinois? I was on the wrong page. Oh, you have to go, what places do you have to go to? You would have to go to the county clerk's office, the Board of Election Commissioner's office, city or village offices, township offices, or the precinct committeeman's office, any school or public library, or a military recruitment office, which is interesting. I'd never known that you could do that. We don't do, there are some things, I said states are different. There are things that we just don't do here in Texas that other states do. And I guess that's pretty interesting to know, just FYI. And then the registration deadline for the state of Illinois is October 6th for regular registration. And regular registration is like the DMV or the paper registration, those. But if you are registering online, the last day to be able to register to vote online at the Illinois elections website is October 18th. So any other form of registration other than online for the state of Illinois, you have until October 6th. If you are going to register online, you have October 18th. And then your registration becomes what they call active or effective on the day of registration. So if you go online and vote for the elections.il.gov website, soon as you hit submit and you are issued your information, you confirm it and hit submit, your registration becomes active right then. Not so much in the state of Texas, it's 30 days. But so in the state of Illinois, it's same day voter registration. If you go to a voter registration drive and register to vote, your voter registration becomes active right then. I find that really amazing. And then early voting, I'm reading this backwards. The state of Illinois does early voting, mail-in ballot voting, and absentee voting, which is basically pretty much everybody does. And for the state of Illinois, their early voting dates start tomorrow, 2 days. September 24th to November 2nd are their early voting dates. And then you must vote within your voter's residential precinct, which is what I was discussing earlier. And this is actually early voting and general election day on November 3rd. You have to vote within your voter's residential precinct, and that is based on your residential address. And if you don't know what your precinct number is, you can go to the elections.io.gov website, and there's a link on there. I've actually seen it where you put your address in and it tells you what your precinct number is, and it gives you all the polling locations where you can go vote. I did not place all the polling locations down because there are at least 50 polling locations, in individual counties or parishes or townships or however you want to call them. So it was kind of hard to put everybody's poll location, voting locations there. So my advice to you is, if you don't already know your location to be able to go vote, go onto the website and put your address in. Like I said, it will give you your precinct number, and then it will provide you with all of the locations within your precinct that you are able to go vote. And then the primary forms of ID that you should be able to use, once again, passport and military ID, driver's license or state ID, college, university, school, or work ID, lease, mortgage, or deed to your home, a credit or debit card, Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid card, an insurance card, civic union or professional membership card, the Link Public Aid or Department of Human Services card, or the Illinois FOID card. Those are all the forms of ID that you can use. And one of the things with the state of Illinois is that if you have registered, because that's what it said, when does ID have to be presented? None of those forms of ID are required if the voter has registered in their right precinct before. So if you lived in the same house for the last 10 years, that's what, a couple of presidential elections, and you have voted, and you are voted in your correct precinct, and that's what you did, you don't have to present any ID. Another reason is an election judge. You show up to vote and everything's fine. Maybe somebody knows you there, which, hey, that does happen, and no one can contest who you are. No one says, hey, let's see your ID and make sure you're who you are. As long as an election judge does not contest who you are and challenge who you are as a person in your ID of what they have for you in the system, you do not have to show any ID. You do have to show ID if you are registering in person after the voter registration deadline has passed and you are voting in your home precinct on election day. Remember, everything is about you are required to vote in your home precinct. And then if you do have to present ID, and this is one form of ID, if you have filed for an address change, or you are trying to do, address change, whether you do it online or in person, and it is after the registration deadline, you have to present one form of ID in one of those forms on that long list that I just said. And then that even means, even if you voted and you're still, like, say you moved from this street in your precinct, but you moved around the corner, just because you're still in the precinct, even if you changed your address, you still have to present a new form of updated ID to show your new address, even though you're still living in the same precinct. And then you have to show two forms of ID if an election judge does contest who you are and the information that they have for you in the system. And then if your voter submitted a mail-in registration form that did not have an Illinois identification or driver's license number, or an Illinois, so you didn't present a Social Security number, I apologize. So you present two forms of ID if an election judge contests who you are, or if your mail-in registration application does not have an Illinois issued driver's license number and ID number, which means you moved to the state from another state, somewhere else out of the country or whatnot, you have to present two forms of ID. And so, like I said, those, you have the primary forms, and then the supplemental forms. You can use a utility bill or a transcript or a report card from school, a bank statement, a pay stub, or a pension statement, utility, medical, or insurance bill, or an official mail, or any official mail from any government agency. So there are several forms of ID that you can use to register. Not to register to vote, to allow you to vote when you go to check in. And then the voting hours for voting, and it didn't say whether it was early and or regular voting, election day voting. It just says the hours of voting are from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so that was for the state of Illinois. And if you have any questions for me, put them in the comment section, and then I will get to them, when I get through everything. That way it'll save on time. I'm very cognizant of my time. I try to be respectful of everyone's time. The next state that I'm going to cover is the state of Nevada. And like I said, I've already posted that website in the comments section. And once again, you can also double check and make sure that you are registered to vote online with the state of Nevada as well. Registration guidelines for the state of Nevada: you must be a U.S. citizen. You have to be 18 years on the date of the next election, which means on November 3rd, you have to be 18 years old. And 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote in Nevada. And I was trying to find some information on that, other than you can pre-register to vote. And I'm assuming It's basically based on your birthday. If you're 17 now, but they know you will be 18 on election day, they will allow you to register to vote. Otherwise, you have to wait until you're 18. And then the residence limit, you must have lived in Nevada for at least 30 days before the election and within your election precinct at least 10 days prior to election. So the 30 days, if we go back to the state of Illinois, remember that was October 4th. And so then 10 days prior to the election, let's see, that's November 3rd. Hold on, I'm in October looking at the wrong thing. So we go to November 3rd. That's 7, 8, 9, 10. So you would have had to been in the state of Nevada at least between the dates of October 4th in order to register, and then within your precinct where you're going to vote no later than October 23rd. So those are your dates for Nevada. So October 4th, you would have had to move to Nevada and on or before October 4th, and then you have to be living in the precinct that you will be voting on or before November 10th. I mean, excuse me, what was that? Not November 10th. My apologies. What? The 27th, 1, 2, 3, October 24th. I wanted to make sure my math was correct before I said anything. And then convictions. No one currently serving a term of imprisonment for a felony conviction is allowed to vote. And some of this I am going to read word for word because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding in what I'm saying. And then as far as mental competence, you cannot be determined by a court of law to have been diagnosed as mentally competent. So it's kind of like the state of Illinois. They do not allow convicted felons to vote. And you cannot have any type of officially diagnosed mental incapacity to be able to vote. I mean, will not allow you to vote. And then you can claim, the state of Nevada is saying you can claim no other place as your legal residence. So you're going to vote in Nevada, you have to be able to say, hey, I'm staying in Nevada. And so then how to register. Nevada actually allows you to register online. And so does the state of Illinois. And once again, you will go to the state of Nevada's elections website, but the quick link is register to vote nv.gov, which is register to vote nevada.gov. And once again, like I said, I have the primary election links in the comment section, but all of these supplemental links are on those pages. And so you, in the state of Nevada, the first way is to register online at their website. And you can both register to be a new registrant to vote, or if you need to update any information or change your party affiliation, you can do all of those things online at this website. There's also a paper registration, which you will go to that to the the Nevada elections website page and download and print. And for some people, they still want to do things in writing. We can't say that's antiquated, but there are some people that believe in printing things and writing and putting their signatures on, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Sorry about that. My throat is getting dry. And then those are the I'm sorry, there's another form. And then you can go and register in person at the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles office, the county clerk or registrar or voter's office, and then various social service agencies and any college campus in the state of Nevada. You can go and register to vote in person. And so you have three options. You can register online. You can download the application, print it out, and fill it in and send it in, or you can go to the Nevada DMV, any county clerk or registrar's office, any social service agency, or any college campus within the state of Nevada and register to vote. And in Nevada, the registration deadline for regular registration is October 6th. And once again, that's any registration other than online. And then online registration for the state of Nevada is October 29th. And then the effective date, just with as with the state of Illinois, your registration effective date is same day. So especially if you register in person, if you mail it in, that's not same day because it has to get sent, it has to arrive at the registrar's office, the county elections office, and then somebody has to input that information. But once it's input, it's automatically effective. But if you go somewhere or you register online or you go to one of these offices or one of the college campuses and register in person, when they hand you your information, your registration is now active. And then you can also, in the state of Nevada, register and vote on the same day, which I find that highly interesting. There are just some really good things you find out when you research. These are not things that you just, if you research and, there is nothing that would ever make me say, hey, let me go look up the registration requirements for the state of Nevada. Never. But in the state of Nevada, you can register and vote on the same day, which is interesting when they say that the regular registration is October 6th and online registration is the 29th. But I guess if you if you register before that or whatever, then you can register and vote on the same day. Hey, that's just what it says. And then the state of Nevada also offers early voting, the mail-in ballot, as well as absentee voting, and pretty much all the states offer that, and that's good. So the early voting dates for the state of Nevada are Saturday, October 17th through Friday, October 30th. So let me repeat that. Early voting dates for the state of Nevada starts on Saturday, October 17th, 2020, and ends on Friday, October 30th, 2020. Where do you vote? You must vote within your voter's residential precinct, kind of like the state of Illinois. Hours of voting varies by precinct, and I didn't get that deep with it once I said there were a lot of locations, and I don't have all of that time to present all of that. So you would go to the Illinois elections website, input your address, your residential address. It will give you your precinct number, show you all the locations that you are eligible. I mean, all the locations that you can vote within that precinct. And then the times, it depends on each location, what their voting times are. So, if you want to go to a specific location, look for them and look for what their voting hours are. And then primary forms of ID that would be presented are the Nevada voter registration card, a Nevada driver's license, a Nevada ID card issued by the Department of Motor Vehicles, a photo military ID, and any form of identification issued by a governmental agency which contains the voter's signature and physical description or picture. So that's basically any type of state issued ID with the picture on it. Most often is also going to have your eye color, height, weight, that type of stuff on it. That's what they're saying. You must have that. And next, we are at the state of Texas, my home state. I have, and most of my information, the majority of it is going to be basic for the state, but I live in Dallas County. So I actually have plenty of information for Dallas County. And it's not, I'm not, playing favoritism. It's just that I live here. So I'm also a registered, that's one thing as well that I forgot to mention. I am actually also a sworn volunteer deputy register for Dallas County, Texas. And that just means that there's a certain registration that I can do for you that you wouldn't be able to do, say, if you go to the library, and I'll get to that as I go down the list. But that's also one of my things. I consider myself a servant leader. And so one of my servant leadership roles is that I chose and decided this year that I wanted to register millennials and teens to vote, and make sure that those my age and my elders, and things like that, that they are all, registered to vote, or their registrations are up to date. Do we need to change any addresses or anything like that? So that was my way of giving back this year, especially with this election. It is very important, and I'm not gonna jump on a soapbox or anything, but this is a very important election year for us. And so I wanted to make sure that I could get as many people registered to vote. I don't care who you vote for. Just like Matthew told us, over 50% of Americans won't even register to vote. And so we need to change that. And it's not just because of this election. People need to understand that their vote counts. So that's my little small soapbox. But so that's why I chose to become a deputy registrar. That's one of my jobs with that I do. I have many roles. And so in the state of Texas, website listed in the thing, it's votetexas.gov. One thing that you cannot do in the state of Texas is register to vote online. However, once you have registered to vote, you can go online and check your voter registration status. And once again, when you go to the votetexas.gov website, there's a link in there. It's a whole page of links. And you can go to the Texas Secretary of State's office, which is what Matthew was talking about, the State Secretary of State's websites. state of Texas, you would go to the Texas Secretary of State's office to check website to check your registration to make sure that it's up to date or it hasn't been suspended for some reason. Or you can change your address. That's one thing you can do. And actually, that's kind of iffy because you go in and change everything, then you have to print it off, put it in the mail, things like that. Texas is said to be antiquated. We are one of the 9 states that do not allow online registration, and in a way, it kind of hurts us. But the registration guidelines for the state of Texas is that you must be 17 years and 10 months minimum to vote, to register to vote, not vote, but register to vote. And that means that by election day, you should have already turned 18 on or before. So on November 3rd or before, you will have turned 18 in order to vote. That's why they said the limit has to be 17 years and 10 months. And then in the state of Texas, if you have been a convicted felon who has satisfied your sentence, you can register to vote, which there are several states that will not allow convicted felons to vote. In the state of Texas, once you have satisfied your felony conviction and any parole requirements and any of that things, once that stuff is all done, it has to be completed. You can then register to vote and vote in the elections, in any elections. And so in Texas, we have there are 3 options to vote. You have the online application, and like I said, you cannot register to vote online. So if you fill out that application, you're going to fill everything in, and then you're going to hit print. You print that out, sign it in blue or black ink, put it in the envelope, put it in the mail. That's Texas's version of online registering. However, the most common form is the white application, and it's an application card. It looks like a big postcard. It's the common form. They call it the common form voter registration application for the state of Texas. These can be picked up almost anywhere. You can get them at high schools, at the local library, post office, anywhere, because anybody can request from the state of Texas for a stack of voter registration cards. And you can, even like myself, I can request some and send them out. Excuse me, I hope y'all didn't hear that. But so you can pretty much get a white voter registration card from anywhere or anybody. And then the difference there is once you fill out that application card, you have to seal it, put it in the mail. It's up to you to make sure that the information is accurate, that everything on there is correct, it is legible, and then seal it, put it in the mailbox. Well, one thing that I can do as a volunteer deputy registrar is provide what they call the green voter registration application form. And that is the one where if you come to me and say, hey, Dr. King, I need to register to vote. I live in Dallas County. And because I'm only sworn and certified to register people within Dallas County, not over the state, every county. If you want to be a volunteer deputy registrar in the state of Texas, you definitely want to do it for the county that you live in. But if you're trying, like I can't go to Tarrant County and register somebody to vote. I would have to be certified with Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth. So I'm certified to register people to vote just for Dallas County. Excuse me. And so I have what's called a green card. And actually, I apologize, you guys. I have these cards right here. I wasn't even thinking about it. So like I said, you can get a stack. Here are the primary cards right here. And I apologize, I forgot all about these. These are the regular cards, and they're just little. Let me take one off so you can see it. It's like a big old postcard, trying to make sure I get it in the camera. And you can fit, and you fill in the things, and then once you're finished, you're going to fill it out, look at it, make sure everything is correct. You're going to seal it, lick it. No postage is necessary. Make sure, you can put some tape on it, tape it all around, make sure nobody opens it or whatever. Stick it in the mailbox, and then it gets to the, my apologies, I dropped some stuff. Senate, this goes to the Dallas County, said the Secretary of State Elections Division. So this goes to Austin, not the county. This goes to Austin, and then they put your information in the system and they send you a voter registration card. Well, for me, because I am one for Dallas County, and this is any voter registrar in Texas, not just me, the cards are not just green because it's Dallas County, but this is the green one, and this is the one that if you go to a certified county voter deputy registrar, we will use these. And for these, fill it out, we double check. It's front, one's Spanish and one's English. So here's the English part, the back is the Spanish part. It's the same information on both sides. And I'm not sure what's going on. I lost you on the video, but you can still hear me on audio. So we'll go there. I'm not sure what has happened. Could be something internet related. I have no clue. But you can still hear me. So with the green application card, you will be able to complete that form, fill it out, and I will double check it, make sure that all the information is correct, and hopefully this video will pop back up soon. I'm not sure what's going on. It's saying, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. It has been raining nonstop in Dallas, Duncanville today, so I'm assuming the weather has something to do with it, but you guys can hear me, so I'll keep going. I'm almost finished anyway, so that's fine, because in the state of Texas, the green application forms are completed, and then the volunteer deputy register checks it for accuracy of information, make sure everything is legible, and then the voter register, the person that's registering, will sign it and date it, and then I would sign it and date it. But there's also a little receipt that's at the bottom of it. It's a little cardboard stub receipt, kind of looks like a ticket, and I would sign that and put my name on it, my voter registration ID, and date it, and give that to the person that's registering. And then I have 5 business days to take that person's application downtown to the Dallas County Elections Department, and then turn that in. And then they will hand input that information there at that office and send that person their voter registration card. And so that's what happens with the green voter registration card. And then in Texas, registrations become effective 30 days after they are received and processed. It's not same day. Once it is received and processed. So if you use the white card and put it in the mail, it's not effective until it actually gets to Austin. They process it and send you a card. With the green cards, it's effective once I take it downtown to the county office and put it in their hand, and they put it in the system. And sometimes that can be 24, 48 hours, and you'll have your card within 7 to 10 days with the green ones. With the white ones, it just depends on when they get it in the mail, how many registrations come in, that type of thing. So if you're trying to vote, trying to register to vote in the election, and you still need to vote, the election deadline is October 5th for the state of Texas. And if you can find somebody that is a deputy registrar that they can get your card down to the elections office and input it into the system within 3 to 5 days. Sometimes it only takes 24 to 48 hours, but they say 3 to 5 days. But that's the route that you want to go at this point, because you only have so long because of that 30 days. If you don't have that green stub, if you just put the white application in the mail, you can't vote early, because there's a 30-day, 30-day effective date. So if you haven't registered to vote already, and you haven't gotten a green, you haven't registered with somebody with a green application card, then your ability to vote early at this point is over. You can only vote on November 3rd, on election day. And so registrations in Texas renew every 2 years. So once you voted and you haven't moved or anything, you'll get a new registration card every 2 years. You don't have to vote. Some people register because they move every election, but as long as you stay in the same address or the same county or whatever, your registration will renew every 2 years, and you'll get a new card. And then in the state of Texas, your registration deadline is October 5th. It's for us. It's 30 days before election day. October 4th for us is October 5th. And then Texas allows early voting, mail-in voting, and absentee voting, just like everyone else does. And so for the state of Texas, hopefully, I wish this video would come back, because you guys are just hearing my voice, but it's okay. Early voting in the state of Texas is October 13th through the 30th. And then you can vote within your county of residence. And each county has their own rules. And so in Dallas County, as long as you live in Dallas County, there are, how many places were there? Because once again, there were way too many to list. Dallas County alone has 57 polling locations that you can go to vote. And you don't have to go where you live. Years ago, they used to do the precincts, but this will be the first year that if you live in Dallas County, you will be able to vote anywhere. And that's not every county in Texas. This is just Dallas County. I can only speak on Dallas County. So in Dallas County, if you live in Dallas County, and you work in Dallas County, then you can go vote over by where you work instead of coming back home. You stay 30 minutes from your job, go somewhere by your job and work, or if you're in college and you stay and you want to go vote by the school, and you live here in Duncanville, but you go to SMU, which is in North Dallas, which is about 45 minutes from here, depending on traffic. You can vote up by SMU. You don't have to come all the way back to Duncanville. So that's one of the good things for Dallas County this year. We don't have precincts starting this election. They did it with the primaries, and now this is the first general election that anybody living in Dallas County, your address is in Dallas County and you work in Dallas County or go to school in Dallas County, you can vote anywhere in Dallas County, within the county. And then hours of voting, just about for everybody, is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday and on election day. And that's early voting as well. And then Sundays are 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. early voting. There is no Sunday voting as of yet. Well, there is no Sunday voting on general election. It's just one day. But early voting, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then on Sundays, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then on election day, voting is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. regardless. That's the state of Texas. And so the primary forms of ID that you would need to register to vote and to check in to vote will be a Texas driver's license, an election ID certificate, a Texas ID card, a U.S. military ID card, and a U.S. passport, and they must all be current. But for the Texas driver's license, it cannot be expired more than 4 years. And so supplemental forms of ID, if you don't have any one of those, you can use a birth certificate, an official birth certificate. It cannot be a copy. A current utility bill or a bank statement that has your name and your current address on it to show that you live in the county. And then a government check or a paycheck or a government document with your name or address. The supplemental forms, other than the birth certificate, or your paycheck, because most paychecks don't have the name and address. They may have just the name. But any supplemental information that you use, like I said, other than maybe your paycheck and your birth certificate, that information has to have your name and your current address on it, because you have to be able to prove that you live within the county that you're trying to vote in. And then, like I said, if you're not in Dallas County, there's kind of pretty much like Nevada and Illinois. You have to vote within your precinct, and your precinct is going to be on your voter registration card that comes in the mail. If you don't know, you can go to the votetexas.org site, put in your address and look up your precinct. And then once again, it'll tell you all the locations that you can vote within your precinct number. And so one thing to make sure this is pretty much for all of the states, make sure that your name and your address is the same on as much of your documentation as you can, especially when you're presenting ID and things like that. Because when your name, like, the state of Texas has what they call similar names. So if your name is William and somebody has Bill, one of your forms of ID has William and then something else has Bill on it, those are going to be similar names. Or, you do Robert and may have Rob, things like that, Kathleen, Kathy. Those, you can tell those are the same people. But if you have William on something and David on something else, just because the last names are the same, you are asking for problems. So make sure that your information, address, date of birth, name are all correct on as much valid official information that you have, especially when you're talking about IDs and utility bills, bank statements. The more that information matches, name, spelling, address, everything, the less problems you'll have when you go to try to vote. And with all the issues that they've been talking about that's foreseeable with this election, the last thing you want to do is not be allowed to vote because you do not have something that matches. People are trained to be poll workers, but at the same time, there are some things that they will allow to slide and not. Like I said, like William and Bill, same person, Robert and Rob, Jimmy and James, things like that, and some people will and some people won't. It just depends on who's checking you in. So just make sure that as much as your information is the same as can be, so you do not have any problems when you go to check in to vote, and you don't want to be turned away to vote, because that's your civic duty and your right. And so to recap, I was talking about state of Texas, Illinois, and the state of Nevada's registration guidelines, basic guidelines for anybody in the United States being a U.S. citizen, meeting your state's residency requirements, being 18 years old on or before election day, and then make sure that you meet your state's voter registration deadline if you're registering to vote and you have not received an automatically renewed card. But each state has their own guidelines and their own little nuances, so it's kind of hard to put everything here. I got about 9.5 minutes left, and it's just, there was so much information that I had to choose to pick the basic information out of everything. And so I don't see any questions. Oh, y'all can still see me? Oh, y'all can see me. I can't see you. Interesting. I don't know what happens there. Oh, well. As long as you can see me. I didn't think you guys could see me because my screen is black over here. But that's fine. That's good. And so, like I said, I did the guidelines for Texas, Illinois, Nevada. And then coming up at 3 o'clock, which is in about roughly 9 minutes, Matthew is going to come back and he's going to do the guidelines for Georgia, Maryland, and Washington. And then he's basically going to do the same thing I did. He's going to go through the states, go through the guidelines, go through the requirements. I'm not sure if he did the voter locations. I just couldn't. There were way too many. Like I said, my suggestion is click on the link to go to the individual states if you live in those states, and then put in your address, and it'll tell you everything that you need to know about your precinct number based on your residential address, and then the areas and locations that you can go to within that precinct to vote. And then I will be back at 4 o'clock discussing the history of voting, and I will discuss the first U.S. election, the minority voting rights movement, the women's voting the women's voting rights movement, and then everyone's favorite, the Electoral College. But everybody needs to know about these things, so I'm going to discuss them as best I can. And I hope if you don't have any questions. But it has been wonderful here today. This was fun. I enjoy these things. If y'all can't tell anything, y'all can tell that I enjoy these things. Doing this is fun. I don't know where this has been for the last 10 years of my life because I enjoy this. But I am glad to be able to give you this information. Voting, like I said, to me, it's just one of those things that's just really important to me, and I'm trying to share that information and let my daughter know that voting is one of the things that you have blatantly, my ancestors have died for me to vote, and I'm going to take that. And the Lord has put me on the earth. I am here. My voice matters. So I will be voting. I will be voting early. Hopefully I did get hired to work the polls this year. I haven't found out any information yet on that. I have training and things to do, but I will be working the election polls. I at least was hired to work the election polls here in Duncanville this year. It's going to be my first time. It's going to be interesting with COVID, but I can do it. I'm going to be in there, in a hazmat suit. But thank you everybody for listening. Like I said, Matthew will be back in 7 minutes, and then I will be back at 4 p.m. and hope to see you for both. There's also a survey, the post-event survey, and I ask that you fill out one for both myself and then Matthew's first presentation on Voting 101. If he didn't post it, I missed the first part of it. I apologize for that. But if he didn't post the link, that link is there, and we're using the same form. So if you didn't get to see his, you can click the link in the comments in mine, and if you can, fill that survey out for both Matthew's presentation and myself. And then we have 2 more. We both have 2 to present today, so hopefully we'll get 4 surveys from everybody, and appreciate it. I want to give Matthew time to get logged in and get signed up, so I once again want to say thank you, and thank you for your time, for the information I was able to present, and I will see you guys back here at 4 p.m. Thanks. Bye.